Hello, everyone. Welcome to History with Hersapet. I'm your host, Chris, aka Hersapet. Today, I'll be talking with a couple of friends, Jake and Nick, about COVID year two. This is the fourth episode in a series of moral, ethical, and philosophical conversations about historical events. The views shared on this podcast come from ordinary people who lived through these events. My hope is that it will give a unique perspective on history. How is everyone this afternoon?
Doing good.
Doing good?
Doing well.
Still nobody's doing bad. I'm waiting for it. Just one of these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't even want to know. Oh, tell me. Spill the tea. I'm here. I'm here to talk.
Lay it on me.
Yeah, exactly. Give a little update on the Russia invading Ukraine. It seems he's Putin's like ramped it up a bit, where he's attacking just civilian areas, hospitals, churches, schools. He's trying to push it because he's being strangled with sanctions, and numerous other ways of going about it. I'm kind of fearful as to what if he gets pushed too far, what he's going to do, what he's capable of. Pretty much, he could. I don't know. He seems like a type of guy that he doesn't really care, and it could be quite scary here pretty soon.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it'd get even worse. I think that America should be more diplomatic with China at this point to try and steer them
Cut
away
off,
from helping
right.
out Russia.
Right.
Because that's kind of like they've made up basically put all their forces on Ukraine at this point, or going to, because at one point China was just like, I think it was like back in like January, February. I think it was February, and they were just like, yeah. China was like, yeah, I won't have my troop station there. You could do whatever you want, basically.
I think this is actually going to deter China from invading Taiwan. I thought it might empower them.
Yeah.
But I think with this, what they've seen, what we've done with sanctions.
Well, not even just the sanctions. I mean, the whole invasion really has stalled. It's not. I think they were thinking it was going to be a whole lot smoother, and the Ukrainian people are going to be open arms. But you got people, whatever forces that are occupying, or basically you got the civilians there, basically telling them to fuck off, get out of here.
Right.
So when you have that, and they're getting their armored personnel getting blown up left and right. There's no support from the people there. I mean, it's just an major uphill.
Right.
The Russian logistics are failing.
Yeah, and the logistics are just ridiculous.
Their rations are
like
apparently like 10 years old.
Right. Yeah, right? I've seen photos. It's wild.
It's crazy.
The Ukrainian people, the sunflower, I believe, is their national flower. And so there's Ukrainian people handing out sunflower seeds to Russian soldiers, saying that when you die here,
put this in your pocket.
Yeah, the sunflower will grow where you died. And I just, that's badass. That's just great,
Yeah.
But
that's just demonstration of the people, like just basically, like I said, they're just like telling these Russian guys to fuck off. So when you don't have, you have the civilians basically, supporting their own military. It's an uphill battle. I don't think Russia's really going to achieve the victory they're thinking they're going to have, or were thinking they were going to have.
Right. And my worry then is, at what point does it get to that tipping point when Putin realizes he's surrounded? That it's what does he do? And hopefully we can avoid it if it hopefully doesn't come to that, but we'll see. So just for future podcasts, next week we will be doing part 2 of our 10-part session of the review of the 2000s decade with the year 2001, and I believe the following week we should be doing the housing market crash of 2008. So we'll be talking about that in a couple weeks. And so right now, gotten a bit of feedback and realized that there isn't a great deal of information as to who we are, who's talking. And so I thought about that, and it's good point. And so we're gonna go through and make sure that we do what we're gonna do, like a little bit of a questionnaire. Now this is a questionnaire that derived from Bernard Pivot. He's a French journalist But he came up with a questionnaire that was used in the show Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton.
Here we go.
I've always thought they were great. I used to ask them to people that I work with, new hires and such, just to get an idea as to who they are. And so these questions aren't like, what's your favorite color? Although, not that I'm not interested, Jake. You go ahead and you can tell me if you want. But this is more of a the idea is to get you to think maybe. And you don't necessarily have to think. You can also answer them straight away, whatever comes right off the top of your head. But they are a different view, a different way of getting to know somebody. And the first question, Jake, is what is your favorite sound?
My favorite sound?
Your favorite sound.
Oh, that is a good question. I guess I do kind of like oh God, there's I'm trying to think what the damn I'll look it up here in a second, but it's a bird. I've come to really like it here lately. It's just this bird that lives nearby, and it's this distinctive little call it makes. I guarantee you've heard it. They're like these little field birds. But that's kind of that's like the first thing that comes to mind. It's a very nice sounding little bird chirp or whatever you would call it. But it usually just kind of it makes me think that it's it reminds me that it's warm, and I'm starting to hear them now in this little patch of like tall reeds behind me. They live. I've had them there. I've heard them in like just fields and like near in the farm country kind of. I'll have to look what it is off the top of my head. I can't think of the damn name of it, but that's a very nice. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, and I guess that's my favorite sound as of right now. Yeah, right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Is that like a sound that you've heard growing up as well? That maybe makes you think of younger times, or just things like this is the turn of spring.
I could say that too for sure, because I know being younger, I do remember hearing them. I think my parents had built a house, in the early 2000s, late 90s, and there was a field adjacent to our lot, and I remember hearing that distinctive like little chirp. So maybe I'm recalling from that. But like I said, at the same time, they're not really present in the wintertime, or you don't really hear them calling and making their little songs. But now that it's getting warmer out today, so I don't even know how warm it is out right now. In the 60s, maybe it's pretty warm out today. Coming 58. Into the 58. Okay. Yeah. It feels great with that sun, but
for sure.
Yeah, they're chirping. So that's like telling me that, warm weather's ahead.
All right. Second question is, what is your least favorite sound?
What would be my least favorite sound? I don't know. What would my least favorite sound be? I guess hearing someone crying, like sad crying, I guess.
Okay. No, that's perfectly great. That's a great answer. The third question would be, what is your favorite word?
That is a good question.
It could be in any language, so it doesn't have
to be I don't know. I really don't have a favorite word. I've never really thought of what my favorite word. There's lots of possibilities there. I guess I'll go with marble. That just kind of rolls off the tongue very smooth. So that's what I'm going. Smooth. I'm going with that. That's what I'm going with right now.
What's your least favorite word?
I get dictate. I guess not because dictating like dictating isn't like not like actual like a ruler or anything, but like I guess you could like just that word in general. It could be dictating like notes or something, or dictating actually as a ruler. That just kind of that's harsh. That's harsh. Rolling off.
Gotcha. Okay. What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck, I guess.
Fuck. Typical, standard, like it. It's old school. Yeah. It's good to go. It doesn't get old.
Yeah, no. It's tried and true.
So, is there any, aside from the profession that you have right now, is there any job or profession that you wish that you would most want to do?
Outside of this, I could do I don't know. I could be marine biologist. I like seals and shit.
You were not a. So you're an RN now. So what
Yeah,
is your
yeah,
official? Okay, so RN. If you weren't
yeah,
an RN, you would love to be a marine biologist. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. What job would you not like to do?
I guess garbage disposal, because I mean
Garbage.
I know they get paid decent, but
Yeah.
like I just yeah, like I can't imagine like coming home and just like smelling like whatever was like in the family's garbage, that
Mhm.
day that spilled on you. No
Gotcha.
mystery
Uh,
fluids.
God.
um, the question reads, uh, what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally? Like, what gets your juices flowing? What lifts your spirits? What gets you going? Like, what excites you in that way?
Just like repeat the question.
So, what turns you on, like creatively, spiritually, emotionally? Like, what gets your juices flowing? What like inspires you essentially?
I guess like something that I like have a passion for or something, and that a challenge being presented, like
Mhm.
oh god, I can't really like I guess if I was gonna like I'm trying to think of a really good example. I don't really have one. If it was like, for example, I like, one of my little hobbies I like to do is like photography. Like,
Mhm.
if there was a challenge, like, hey, here's your subject, try to present this subject. It could be like, I don't know, like, let's say we were just talking about like a sunflower, like
Mhm.
present the sunflower in a very depressing, sad looking way, like, and having that challenge to do that,
Mhm. Yeah.
I guess that kind of gets me excited a little bit, like having
Okay.
that sort of challenge.
What deflates you? What turns you off? What brings you down?
I don't like, you know, I guess failure. So like, well, I don't know, shit. I guess if I was like really struggling, trying to do something like challenge wise, and I just couldn't
Mhm.
do it, um, I guess that could, but it could also kind of lift me up. Um,
I
which is
got
like
you.
kind of,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
that could be that kind of way, which is kind of funny because like I'm playing that like Dark Souls, the same company that makes Dark Souls just came
Mhm.
out with Elden Ring, which I'm playing that right now, which is like ironic because
Mhm.
I die over and over
Right.
trying to fight a boss. Instead of like having my gas deflated, I'm just like keep going.
Right.
I guess that could be, but it could also be the opposite and get me going. So
Um, and that's 9 questions. By the way, I'm also playing Elden Ring, and I cannot say good enough things about that game. Uh,
oh, it is
it's
fantastic.
fantastic. Love it. Never played a Soulsborne game, and
Oh, really?
no, it's my first one. Popped my cherry with this one, and it is amazing.
A challenge. Yeah,
That's what I'd
yeah.
be
It's
doing
a good.
right now if I didn't have to do this damn podcast.
Oh,
But uh, just kidding. So the last question is, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates? Assuming it's not Saint Peter and God, the head of the company is at the front door. He's a door greeter, I guess.
mhm.
So if he's there, what would you want him to say to you?
um, yeah, oh God, what do I want God to say to me? Uh, sup?
So,
Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah.
He's got like sunglasses on.
It's like sup.
So,
He's got a Hawaiian t-shirt,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
right?
That's
yeah,
actually I like that imagery. I'd be
Yeah.
down with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
long beard with a joint in his mouth.
yeah, yeah. I could go with that.
And he just says hi and he hands you the joint. Oh, shit. Oh,
Oh.
okay. So that's our 10 questions for Jake, our friend Jake, just to get him, just to get to know him a bit better. And we'll be doing that with everyone that joins us for any episode here. We'll get everyone squared away here soon. But yeah, just a little new segment to it. Now, today we are going to start talking about the second year of COVID. And I remember when COVID first started, like, you know, people were starting to get nervous about it at least. I attributed COVID to Y2K. I remember telling like people like, it could be something like Y2K where it's actually not that big of a deal. So when we would get like, because I worked in retail, and we would get like signs like saying because of COVID-19, like Starbucks had their own COVID-19 like ingrained writing, these, I was like, you should hold on to those, because in like 10, 15 years, that'll be a memoir, a souvenir of this time. It could be worth something. Because I don't have any
actually.
my Y2K like t-shirts, which also is funny that I think end of the world, like what do you call it, like apocalyptic, being a salesman in apocalyptic time, like you're selling t-shirts about the apocalypse, they don't usually sell. If they do, you don't really see the profit. If it comes true, you're fucked. So it makes sense that you don't see like Y2K.
Yeah, true.
Where if you make money, you're not making it for long. True. So
yeah,
it makes sense. So that's why I was like, hold on to, maybe it'll be worth something someday. And it'd be interesting to think and look back at this time. But I remember that was just something that I obviously much more dangerous, and definitely than fatal, I should say, than Y2K. I think Y2K killed a total of 0, and that cannot be said for COVID. During the second year of the COVID 19, well, at least year 2 at this point, I should say, the vaccine is like the big thing. And what you would normally think would be a pretty standard, okay, we're already used to vaccines, just let's get this going, becomes a thing of contention where there's apparently split upon party lines. It becomes political for to stay in office, to divide people. It's just, so the vaccine distribution is a right now, a total of 10.99 billion doses have been administered worldwide, and that's 64% of the world. In the US, 76.8% of the population have been vaccinated. And that's in the US. I believe it's like 240 million people, somewhere around there. The top percentage of vaccinated individuals per country include China, has 88.1% of their population, which is 1.2 billion people have been vaccinated. That's a difference between China and the United States right there. They run their country a bit different. So
that's true.
Chile, 92.9% of their population.
Good for you, Chile.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Nice.
The United Arab Emirates, or Abu Dhabi is the capital, which is, is 99% of their population.
Wow.
Damn.
And looking this up, there are a couple others where I don't quite understand the percentages, that it's like over 100%. Like one of them had 121% or something like that. I don't know, maybe that's like double dosage or whatever. But my personal favorite is the I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but the Pitcairn Islands. It's part of England, the UK, with a population apparently of 47, has 100% vaccination. So good job, 47 people of the Pitcairn Islands. All 47 are vaccinated. We're good.
All right, nice.
But yeah, there are a couple other countries that have like insanely high percentages. But when I was looking this up, I noticed something that if you notice all the countries that I mentioned, at least the most, the top 8 or 9, it's the top 8 or 9 economies in the world. And so I look down the line, and I mean, North Korea, you can't really trust what they say. It's just North Korea has 0% vaccinated, 0 people, and you don't even. It's probably true. But they're so isolated that it might not even matter.
Yeah,
like people are going
who knows?
North Korea is
Who
not
knows
like a
how much
vacation hotspot.
information? Yeah, who knows how much information they even really know about it? I mean,
right.
So it's
that's
just
crazy.
Haiti, with a population of 11 million, has only 1.4% of the population vaccinated.
Oh my God, dude.
Chad, with a population of 16 million, has 1.7% of the population vaccinated. And so my estimation when looking into this was that these poor countries just aren't getting the vaccine. And why is that?
Yeah.
And so I came across that measures have been taken to ensure the access to the vaccine with this something called the COVAX initiative. which is with the French government, UNICEF, and other organizations. UNICEF deals with distributing the vaccine to get it to poorer nations. They had a goal of 600 million doses by August of 2021, but they ended up only being 200 million because richer nations hoarded the vaccines, which they would refer to as vaccine nationalism. So in the United States alone, we have a large percentage of the vaccines available, where our population doesn't even take them, and nobody,
That's ridiculous.
And the poor countries who need them don't have them, and it's so it feels almost, I wouldn't say comical, stereotypical, uniquely American that we have all this available to us, and instead of taking advantage of it, we use our, well, I'm not going to do it, while other people are, and this is I feel a big part of why COVID's still around as much as it is, why we still have upswings. When the poorest countries in the world, I mean, it's well over 1 billion people that don't even have vaccine and have no access to it. That it just continues to spread. You're not going to be able to solve it if you don't have it for everyone. And everyone says that, vaccines available for everyone. Well, not the poorest of the poor countries who need it the most, I would say.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, guys? I'm sure that's all new information. Jake?
I mean, a little bit, I guess. I mean, it is. I would imagine, we would try to get those countries, inoculated. That way, they're covered. They're not having, mass breakouts and having issues on their end. On the other end, I've watched some documentaries, regarding, third world countries in Africa. And there being like Ebola outbreaks and other various diseases. And unfortunately, one of the things in a lot of those, one of the other issues, they might have access to those vaccines in the country. Unfortunately, there's a lot of lower education in those countries. There's a lot of people in those countries that aren't educated too. At the same time, that you might run into that. I'm sure that's been an issue where you're having a harder time to. I don't know how people are receptive over on that end to it, but you might have more kind of negative, views in lower educated countries. They might not be more as receptive to getting it, and difficulty to how's it how widely available is it? Do they have to just travel a few blocks down the road, or do they have to travel 50 miles when they don't have a car to get vaccinated? So that's like a somewhat new information, but like to maybe I guess speak on why those rates could be low if they do happen to have any sort of access to the vaccine in the country. But I haven't ever heard the holding the vaccines for the richer countries. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised though either.
I think
I think it'd be.
Yeah, go on, Nick.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go
okay.
ahead.
I think it would be. I think it'd be great if America could just say, well, if our population isn't going to take the vaccine, then we'll just send a lot of our vaccines to these poor countries so they can have it.
Right.
And you'd hope that threat would make people go, oh, well, we should definitely take it before it's gone. It seems like people want something that they can't have. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah,
you can't
have it, so the higher demand for it then.
Right. So then people are just gonna be like, well, we should just go get it,
Yeah, right, exactly.
Maybe there'd be a spike in it.
It's like the hot Christmas toy that's out and that everybody wants, but there's exactly. It's a Tickle Me Elmo.
Yeah. But the funny thing, it's like fucking Black Friday or something. But no, how was I gonna say? The other thing is that if they actually did do that, how funny and political it would be that the conservatives would almost certainly be upset that we'd be giving these vaccines away to poorer countries.
You probably would see that,
simultaneously not taking the vaccine.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm sorry, Chris. What were you?
No, I was going to say, this is to Jake's point. I remember reading that vaccines have a shelf life. they expire after a certain time.
Right.
And there was a bunch that were going to expire, and they sent them to poor countries, and they refused to take them. And that goes to the education, and that goes to the what was Jake was saying. So not only do we have a distribution problem, when we do it, we have an education problem.
Right, exactly.
People don't even, so it's a double whammy.
Exactly.
I looked up Yemen, 643,000 people have been vaccinated. That's a 2.1% of their entire population,
wow,
which consists of 27 million people. 27 million people. And so that just goes to the point. It's there. It's a couple of issues, nation hoarding, but also when they do give it, they don't seem to want it some of the time.
Right.
And when they do want it, there's no way to get it to them. It seems like it's just doomed to fail. So it's sad. It really is, and that speaks to vaccine misinformation, which is when I was going to transition here now with that. Jake, I was hoping if you had some information, or just maybe, I don't know if you have, but at being an RN, you may be more acute to hearing what people think is going on more, because I just get like the basics of what the misinformation is, and you may just have that as well. But I was wondering if you had any like insight, like any, how do I say it, like people when they go to take the vaccine or don't want to take the vaccine, the questions that they ask doctors and nurses that just kind of took you by surprise. Like, is it true there are microchips in it? Is it true that
it's like baby fetuses and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, on my end of things, since I work in critical care in the ICU, I don't really, I don't really do any of the actual vaccination end of my thing. Obviously, when people get to my end, it's usually never a good thing.
Right.
But at that point, we're just trying to salvage what we can and try to keep them afloat, keep them alive, I've heard stuff like that. People do make it political, like they'll just bring up like they'll bring up the left's like really pushing it, and there's they'll bring up conspiracy theories, whether the government's really pushing this. I've heard that stuff before. I don't hear it a whole lot. Usually, once they get to like my point of like the whole, I guess, the spectrum of healthcare, usually they're just trying to like, can we try this? Can we try this? Which gets like misinformation of like, you've heard ivermectin get tossed around, hydrochloroquine, all these medications, which, I know some hospitals have tried it. I remember early on in 2020 when we first started getting, we were doing like the hydrochloroquine. Doesn't really, we didn't really nowadays. Like it's been a minute since we've had a COVID patient, which is fantastic. Because the numbers have been significantly down. But in the regimen of medications, no, we don't really do any of that stuff. And that was, spread quite a bit that, the government's withholding, ivermectin, this is the cure and all that. And believe me, I've heard people like ask the docs, like, can we try this? Can we try this? And, it's not going to work. I know there's been plenty of studies done to see if there's any effectiveness on it. I think even in the hospital I work out, and now I do remember talking to one of the ID docs, and them specifically saying that, at one point we did try this, but it doesn't have any effect. With like, same with the hydrochloroquine, which was one of those kind of miraculous like drugs that Trump was kind of saying was it was a breakthrough thing, which
along with the bleach.
Right, exactly, the bleach. Yeah.
You chase it with bleach. That's what you do.
Yeah, right. You chase it with the bleach after you take that. Yeah, exactly, and it should work. But no, I do remember us giving that. I do remember us administering that, but we stopped really like doing it because not getting too in depth, but it would cause, we would notice that there were issues cardiac wise with the electrophysiology end of things. You just kind of see some changes there, which weren't too, I'd never seen anything like negative or anything horrible happen from that. But some of those initial changes were kind of worrisome, where we kind of stopped doing that because we didn't want to keep pushing that. And
that's not good.
No, and that further caused issues heart wise. But, no, I've seen plenty of, on my end, people asking, can we try this? Can we try this? And asking, we would ask people, like, once they came up the floor, like, did you get the vaccine or not? And people would say no. They, I never really asked any further, but I know I've had coworkers ask, and a lot of times it's just, they just didn't trust it and they didn't think that it would work. But, honestly, in the last, this in 2021, the last COVID patients I had seen in the last 3 months there from this past year, all people that didn't get the vaccine. I think I maybe seen 1 or 2 people off the top of my head that did get the vaccine, but those people were like cancer patients that were already horribly ill, and their immune system was already pretty bogged down from chemo and any other treatments they were getting, so they were kind of already in a bad pickle. But I've seen not a whole lot on my end. Like I said, I don't really I haven't ever gave out a vaccine. People that come to once I get to them, it's more so trying to manage the damage that's already done and try to make a last hoorah. But yeah.
All right.
I had this buddy of mine who he was going to get fired from his job unless he got the vaccine. Like, they made it mandatory. He works in like a factory sort of thing. So he could have lost his job. And I remember him messaging me saying, because he kind of believes in some of it, some of the conspiracy stuff. And he was messaging me and he's like, telling me all about it. And I was like, hey, well, he doesn't want to take the vaccine, but he also doesn't want to lose his job. And I asked him, I'm like, well, haven't you gotten the chickenpox vaccine? Haven't you gotten the flu vaccine before? And he's like, yeah, I've gotten all those vaccines. I'm like, yeah, man, it's no different.
Right.
I mean, just, take the vaccine. It's going to be better for you. You get to keep your job, like all that stuff. Like, and you're just like, okay, yeah, all right, I'll take it,
Yeah.
But, a similar story. People that I work with, there are things that in my line of work, you have to go to school and take classes. At one point, you have to go to Las Vegas for another like week-long school session. You have to pass that class. It's a whole thing. And there was a bunch of people complaining, worried to death that they were going to have the vaccine. I heard I have to be vaccinated if I want to go to Vegas. I heard I had to be vaccinated if I have to, be in school and go to class. So I'm not going to do that. If I got to do that, I'm not. I quit. And the job it's a good paying job. You get a pension.
Right.
There's a lot there, and they won't do it because of the vaccine. That's the line they draw. These people work in conditions that are life threatening. They work in surrounded by death, but a vaccine is too far. The disconnect between reality and what's going on. People willing to die on this hill is it's mind-boggling.
And I think that it just comes down to misinformation. I love the new age that we're in, that information is so quickly, readily available. If I want to look up a recipe for anything right now, it's just a matter of typing a few things in, or finding directions to anything. It's just information is so quick. But because of that, you get a lot of information, just misinformation out there that dispels what's the actual truth. So I can understand why some people there is that they don't know what they should believe, what they shouldn't. That's where it comes down to find somebody if you can, or find an actual reliable source that actually deals with that firsthand.
I think that's ultimately the main issue, though, is that a lot of people don't know how to find reliable sources.
Right. Exactly.
They'll be on like .coms and stuff with like pop-ups and ads. And some article that somebody wrote that has,
A blog
no,
post.
right.
or
They
on a
have no
blog
idea
post,
themselves. Yeah.
They have and they just read it and they just assume
Someone's
it's truth,
diary.
and they
Dear diary.
don't
Yeah,
even look back
Vaccines
any
suck.
further than that, you know.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, and but a lot of the times though, actually today is more like social media, you know,
Right.
Twitter and Facebook. People are
Facebook's
just
horrible.
scrolling. It's so easy just to scroll and
Scroll
just
and
read one
right.
thing,
You're
and then be
consuming
like,
so
wow,
much
that's
information. I
crazy.
know.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And a
it could
lot of
be
it's
all varying different angles and degrees, and that
right,
can really confuse the fuck out of someone, using my favorite cuss
right.
word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can really muddle the waters. So I understand, and some people, they do have their valid reasons why, and that's one thing, working on my end. If people chose, if they didn't want to get the vaccine, yeah, I've heard people in my line of work, like, bitch and moan, like, oh, if they didn't get the vaccine, then why are we treating them? I mean, we should still treat them as human beings.
Right.
At the end of the day, everybody has their opinions. Maybe they were misguided. Their sales were pushed in the wrong direction, but
wouldn't that go against is that the Hippocratic Oath? What is the oath there?
well, for nurses, it's like the Florence Nightingale. We take like that's like the doctors, the Hippocratic oaths for them.
Okay.
But we have our own similar kind of little oath that we do, like when we like kind of graduate. We have a ceremony and whatnot. But yeah, no, I mean,
So
that's
how far does it go? Like, is a chiropractor has the Hippocratic Oath? And
Yeah,
then
what
it's
oath do they have?
And then it's a palm
Is a
reader
vet
that has a
palm reader?
Hippocratic Oath as well.
I will tell I will tell no poor fortunes to people. Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah,
And
I
these
don't.
oaths, it sounds so like, I mean, I'm not trying to make fun, not too much, but just like these oath. I'm taking the oath. This is,
Right.
I imagine
Yeah.
like the sacrificial, like lamb or something. You like cut the lamb's head, have drowned
Yeah.
yourself in the blood.
Blood of
all right, that's blood of the lamb.
hypocrisies. Yeah.
That's how priests get made. Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah. That's now you do no harm. Congratulations.
I am drowned in the blood of the lamb. All right, cool. All
Right.
So,
But yeah, no. Oh God, where were we going with this?
well,
I just had a
discuss the.
I just had a Nick moment.
No, you're right.
Oh boy. Oh
well,
boy.
actually, it works out. I was gonna discuss the impact of people refusing the vaccine.
Okay, yeah,
that
go
was
for
pretty
it.
much where that's what we're gonna. I was gonna just people just flat out refusing, and I get like I remember saying, I think last one, that I was hesitant because of the administration that was overseeing the vaccine.
Mhm.
When I learned more about it, and I'd say about 6 months in, I was like, okay, I'm good, and that was my timeline. Now, there's still people to this day that just flat out refuse, and it as time goes on, it just makes less and less sense. I've seen the impact of people refusing the vaccine. Or it doesn't just affect them, the families afterwards, especially if something terrible happens, they live with that too. So
Yeah.
it isn't
Yeah.
just them.
No,
The idea is, I'm sorry, just the last thing I would say is that the idea that I'm going to refuse the vaccine, well, even if it just affects you, let's say you get sick and die, your family has to deal with that.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
friends
No.
have to deal with that,
Yeah.
and everybody else.
Right.
So it's selfish, and
Yeah.
it's just the most basic way.
It is.
Even if yeah. Sorry.
I was gonna keep going, Chris. Sorry, I'm gonna add on to yours here in a second.
I was gonna say, even if it, I can't remember. It's just, even if it didn't like really do anything, if it's like a peace of mind, but it does, even though it does do something, but like you would just, the idea of like, okay, we're all in this together. Me dying is going to affect other people. Well, it may not, help out too much in that regard. Well, I'm still going to try it anyway. Still going to do it anyway. There's not that. It's the freedom, flag and eagle.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No, nobody sometimes, in our actions, we don't think about, the ramifications or the consequences of that, especially around COVID and stuff. And, I can, continue on from what you were saying, it affects other people around. I unfortunately, in these, especially this past winter was a pretty hard one, especially for the younger crowd of COVID patients we had. I've seen, unfortunately, a good handful in those last few months of last year, once winter started taking a hold, seen a lot of younger adults, people starting out their families in their mid to late 30s, people not too far from like how old, like basically about our age roughly, maybe a little older, having to be affected horribly by this virus, and just because that's what they chose, and unfortunately they end up passing away, and they had children, and you've got unfortunately children now, not orphan but losing a parent, which is horrible. And a lot of times, like, they didn't really get to see a whole lot of them during all this, because we don't really allow kids to go into ICU to see like their parents all tubed up and looking all scary like. But yeah, so that's a horrible thing that now affects these kids from one's choice. That's something that people don't think of, unfortunately.
Yeah, I saw this thing on, I think it was YouTube or something. There's this video of this guy who was really anti-vaccine, refused to take it. Ended up in the it was maybe like 40s, 50 years, 40, 50 years old, pretty unhealthy guy. Kind of took the turn for the worst. Ended up, intensive care, and was basically passing away, and was online basically telling people that he was spreading the false information to earlier, that he was wrong, that you should get the vaccine, that it's real, I'm here, I have it, I'm dying from it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately he did pass away. Who knows whose minds he's changed, but unfortunately even one person like that, obviously it happened to him. He even posted it, it went viral even, so like even that won't change anyone's mind. So what can you do?
Right. And I have seen family members that their one loved one got sick with it, and that just seeing that alone, like, it's sad that it takes that much, like, to have it finally affect your house, affect you, with somebody else that you care and love, to get horribly sick and end up dying from it, for you to finally make that decision. But I've seen that too, which is unfortunate, but yeah.
That was actually this is working out well. My next question was, is there a solution to this misinformation in general, but to this?
No.
Is there anything that can be done? I don't feel like there's anything that can be done.
No.
Immediately.
Not really.
No, not really. Yeah.
It would take a long time to remedy this, and it starts with education, I feel.
Right.
And that's what I was going to ask, what role education plays in all this. And I feel it's a fundamental, it's the building block. It's the ground floor. It's where you've got to start with. And you've got to somehow find a way to get through, because it's one thing to be in school, but these, kids are in school, but then they go home, and that's where another half of their education comes from, their home life. And that's where the battle is. It's not only the kids that need to be educated on this, parents as well, people in general.
But and like you said, it would take a long time to remedy, because it would be generations. If you start educating, then it would have to take that long then for the public to kind of spread in that sense, generations upon generations.
Changing the thought process of a people it's a long and daunting process. So
yes,
even if it's for the good, it's an incredibly long process. But
so
people have that right to have that free will and whatnot, to think how they choose, but having that correct information there is very important.
It's really all about just presenting the facts, and then trying to back up the facts that you have by explaining it to them in a certain way, right? So even if you present them, I'm sure they can believe in something else, but they still know that it exists. They still heard of it somewhere. They still have, gone through the process somewhere through their education. So at some point during their life, maybe hopefully they can come back to it and get a better understanding of something that they strayed away from. And
when I was younger, there's so many kids that nowadays it's almost like they're a completely different person. So they wouldn't behave, they wouldn't think these things while they were in school. They wouldn't reach these conclusions. I would say, like, it's not so much what you think, it's how you think. You know, it's how you reach those conclusions, because how you think will determine what you think. And if you learn how to critically think, if you're taught that, you'll reach this pretty much the same conclusions that, experts reach. People that have been in those, those fields. I find that some other times where I will work something out logically that is okay. Yeah, that's already been around. Yeah, we this field has already figured that out. You've stumbled across it like it was some big deal, but no, that's been around for a while. But I reach said conclusion because the ability to think critically generally leads you on a certain path. And when you start getting outside the box, and you start, not that that's horrible all the time, but you've got to have a foundation. And I think the foundation starts with education. And like I said, it's not just the children, the parents, parents as well. But it's going to take a long time. And maybe if we were to actually do it, the next time something like this rolls around, we'll have educated ourselves. We can actually combat it, and it won't kill millions and millions of people.
Well, that also comes around to, history repeating itself, almost, 100 or a little over years ago, we had a very similar thing with the Spanish flu, and, you would say, what has that taught us? Obviously, not a whole lot. At least for some people, I'm guessing the pages for the Spanish flu got stuck together with something else when they were in their, history class. But I would like to think that, but at the same time, the fact that we still have such resistance to it, even though we've had, pandemics in the past, i.e. Spanish flu, and other horrible things, people still are, negative resentment towards vaccines and, being precautious. So, I always try to be half glass, half full, but, at the same time, it's also worrisome that, if, unfortunately something like this does happen, will we change our ways? I don't know.
Right.
That's for time to tell. Obviously the education's been presented before, i.e., like I said, pandemics, but, that's, I guess, time for tell.
I was gonna say,
we've failed once, so go ahead.
No, there are there's things that you shouldn't mess with when you're in up in the government public. So like vaccines, right? There have been times where vaccines were given out, they were given out to infect people with diseases. So the African American community, at one point, they were given vaccines to, or not vaccines. They're given it wasn't a vaccine, but essentially if I'm not mistaken, it what do you call it? Gave them is it chlamydia? I think they were given
studies, STDs,
STDs, and they were given this, and so you can't do that, because now that's just going to breed mistrust. And when it actually comes time to, you really should be taking it. You can understand why they're hesitant. You can't fuck with that. And not only that, like I say, presidential elections, just elections in general, don't fuck with that, because when people start losing faith in our institutions, everything starts crumbling. And if you fuck with it, it's just going to be bad in the long run. Seems to be interesting. And goes to my next thing I was going to say is that people just, the education, they don't understand COVID. They understand aspects of it. There's a statistic I remember on both sides of the aisle, and someone said, getting COVID, how many people, if you had COVID, what percentage of people are going to end up in the hospital? And on the left hand leaning side, everyone, I think it was they said it was 53%, when it was it was one, at that time. And so there's this idea of being, it's just misinformation, or being, what is the, it's not that you want to be right. You think you want to get the right information. So even if it's you don't agree with it, or if it's unwelcome to you in some way, if it's factually true, that's what you go with. And so there's, people fear what they don't understand. That's just that's human nature.
That's human nature. Yeah.
Right.
And so
of
fear
course goes
breeds,
right back to education.
Fear breeds misinformation. So,
exactly.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. So people, this is, even though it was 100 years ago, we forget 5 years ago. People,
Yeah.
like, do you remember like what happened? No, I don't remember that. With TV and everything else, technology, all of it, our memories have just shrunk where no one can remember. I remember that back in like early 2000s. This is when I was, remember a couple of years ago when the president said this or this guy said this, isn't that person, what are you talking about? When did that happen? Nobody remembers. Everything's just like, it's like Men in Black where their memory gets erased. It No one can. So 100 years ago with the bird, no one's gonna fucking remember that. They barely even learn about it in school. So they're certainly not gonna know. And I would not be surprised if something came along in like 20 years and people barely remember COVID. Kinda. It wasn't that big a deal. What did we do? I don't remember. Let's get on Metaverse. So yeah, I really think that it could potentially. We just don't seem like the type of people that remember anything. We're the opposite of elephants. Elephants are phenomenal. They remember everything. Whatever animal we are, that doesn't remember shit. That's us. We should look up to the elephant. How are you doing this? I don't remember. Okay. So we have just recently crossed the 2-year mark of living with COVID. It's hard to believe that we're still in a COVID world since March of 2020. With every advancement made towards combating the disease, there seems to be a pushback from anti-vaxxers, doomsday conspiracists, and the complete neglect of poor third world nations to halt progress. I suppose with reflection, it's actually quite easy to see how we as a society are still in this spot. There's one thing that should be understood is that this is a dress rehearsal for a much deadlier virus that's bound to make an appearance within our lifetime or our children's. The first go round doesn't exactly inspire confidence that we'll live through it when we do. Perhaps it's just an evolutionary process of being programmed to destroy ourselves. But I think for us as a species, we'll need to evolve our thinking on what it means to live in a civilized society. We'll need some upgrades on our ability to empathize with others, an update on our understanding of humanity, a rehabilitation of our morals, ethics, and responsibilities to one another. Of course, none of this will be easy, but it's my view that the hard thing to do and the right thing to do are very often the same thing. And with that, I hope you enjoyed our conversation and will join us again for another installment of History with Hirsifat. Take care of yourselves and each other.